Hey, this is Paige Tingy, and if you're watching this video, you likely have either purchased or are interested in purchasing my presets. This video will definitely give useful tips to anybody who's struggling to use their presets as well. Here are 5 presets that I have in my pack. Each are meant to be used in a little bit different scenario, but I did create them all for landscape, so that's going to be your best bet. I've selected a few photos here to show how to best use them, and we're going to jump in and actually edit this photo. I'm going to use a little bit more difficult preset. We're going to see how it looks, adjust a couple things, and hopefully you can take some of these tips back to your other images. First, we're going to be looking at exposure. Second, adjusting the radial and graduated filters. Third, checking the color, which is going to be the temperature and the hue. And fourth, dodging and burning. This last step is not necessary, but I 150% recommend doing it to take your photos to the next level. So first things first, let's talk about exposure. Everyone has slightly different exposure preferences, which is why I've essentially left that untouched for my presets. Before you decide whether or not a preset works for your image, make sure to adjust that and get it into the right spot. All of my presets have filters that I want you to use to your advantage. Radial are going to be used to exaggerate where the light's coming from, whereas the graduated filters should be used to deepen the shadows opposite of the light. On all your images, you should take into consideration how warm you want the image to be. On my presets, I recommend adjusting the temperature slider and or the hue. Since we're changing greens to orange in this preset, I'm going to focus mostly on the oranges and yellows, but this concept applies for any presets that you might have. If there's a color, if it's too blue, too green, make sure that you go in and adjust some of these sliders that I've showed you here. It'll make a big difference on how the image actually turns out in the end. After you get the colors to a good spot, you can be done. This is where I recommend doing dodging and burning. So I'm going to grab a brush tool, I'm going to raise up the exposure, highlights, and draw down the dehaze. And I'm going to use this brush to paint onto the photo where the light would already likely be stronger. So think about where the light's coming from and use that to influence where you actually color on your image. After that, I'm going to create a new brush. I'm going to drop the exposure and shadows and brush into areas that I would naturally want to be darker. I spend quite a bit of time on this step because I find that it makes the biggest difference on how the image turns out. So get creative, use this technique to create dimension and leading lines, and once you're done, you're ready to export. Although my presets are mostly used for landscape, I did put a couple portraits in here just so that you can see how they work on portraits. Definitely feel free to play around with that as well. Last but not least, this actually might be the most important tip that I give in this entire video, is to use presets as a base and really challenge yourself to adjust the preset settings, see how it changes the image to your liking. This will help you to develop your own editing style and hopefully make it so that you can create your own personal presets in the future, which will immensely improve your editing process. Thanks so much for joining. If you would like to support me, I always appreciate it. I've included a link to my presets below. Either way, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon.